Greetings, students. This week, we're going to look at another type of intelligence called emotional intelligence. So yes, we're continuing on our exploration of ourselves, and just a little bit of a review. So far, we've looked at our learning styles, which are of course the manner in which we process information or how we learn. We've also discussed study environments, which are the physical environments in which we study, we learn, or we process information. And we've also looked at intelligence, or more specifically, multiple intelligence, which is the manner in which we solve problems, the manner in which we create ideas and products that are of value to a particular culture. So this week, what we're going to do is we're going to look at a concept called emotional intelligence. We will refer to emotional intelligence as EI, and EI deals with investigating your emotions to find out if you are in control of them or they are in control of you. So our overarching plan is we're going to start off with talking about what emotions are, where they come from, and what they do for us. Then you guys are going to take what is called an emotional skills assessment profile. For short, we'll call it the ESAP, and that emotional skills assessment will help explain how you tick emotionally, or what we like to say experientially. And then once you have that profile, you're going to be armed with that profile. You're then going to be able to identify which of the areas that you need to develop, strengthen, enhance, and hopefully come up with some strategies to work on those particular areas. Okay, so why exactly are we talking about this concept, called emotional intelligence? And what is it? In fact, those two terms may not even seem like they go together, emotions and intelligence. But there's a fairly well-kept secret over the last some 200 years at colleges and universities, and that is that there are actually two important curricula taking place at the college. And curricula is just a fancy word for the subject matter or the content. So what is it that you're doing at colleges and universities? What is it that you're learning? And there's kind of two areas of your learning. One of those areas is very visible. We're all aware of it. We know it's taking place. But another one is kind of hidden. It's a little bit covert. Not everybody necessarily knows it's taking place, but it's incredibly important. So the first one is called the cognitive curriculum, and that's the one that's incredibly visible. Everybody knows it's taking place. It's in all of our documents. It's stated everywhere. And this is the one that focuses on your academic content areas, the GPA, your semester hours, and so forth. So many students, when they talk about this, that this is the curriculum of higher education, you're mastering the different course content, you're accumulating semester hours, and that's leading to a degree. So think about all of the documents we've already looked at this semester. We've talked about your degree plan, we've looked at degree works, we've looked at the core curriculum, we've looked at your electives, the different divisions that you have to have so many areas, and the natural sciences and the social sciences and the liberal arts. All of that deals with the cognitive curriculum. And also your major, right? Your major has a very specific sequence of courses that you must take. That is the cognitive curriculum. So while that is the most visible type, it's not the only type of curriculum taking place at STC or any college and university that you'll attend. There's also this kind of hidden underneath the surface, what we call covert curriculum, and that's called the emotional curriculum. Okay? It's not as visible, it's not as rational or as focused or as organized, but it's incredibly important to your success. It's important to your academic success, your professional, your personal, and your social. And so that is actually called emotional intelligence. And what it means is that you're learning the skills, the attitudes, and the behaviors that allow you to be in control of your emotions, instead of your emotions dictating and controlling you. So there are a lot of different skill set areas we can talk about when we look at emotional intelligence. Some of these we looked at a little bit when we talked about multiple intelligence. So things like knowing yourself, intrapersonal skills, knowing other people, interpersonal skills, but it's also leadership skills and self-management skills, which we've been talking about over the course of this entire semester. So I want you to keep in mind that you're going to feel what you're going to feel. We're going to have emotions. We're human beings. But you can't choose the emotion, but you can learn how to express that emotion. And that's what actually emotional intelligence deals with. And you can see right there on the cover of the magazine, that was back in 1995 out of Time magazine. The title of it says, "What's your EQ?" All right. And then below it reads, "It's not your IQ." Remember, we talked about IQ, intelligence quotient, when we talked about multiple intelligence. "It's not even a number, but emotional intelligence may be the best predictor of success in life, redefining what it means to be smart." So right now we're coming at this definition of intelligence from a completely different angle of how we talked about it when we looked at the 8 different types of intelligence by Howard Gardner. In fact, we can even look at these 2 types of curricula, as the iceberg that you see on the screen, right? And so on the one hand, the visible part, right, the visible IQ, that's the cognitive curriculum. And we can usually see it, we can measure it according to some kind of a, standardized assessment, some kind of a standardized test, whether it's the THEA or the Accuplacer, the ACT, the SAT, the GRE, an IQ test, or any of the, tests, the cognitive tests that you'll take in your classes in college. So these kinds of tests, like IQ tests, measure in theory how smart you are, how much you know, or you can think of it as the capacity of your cognitive or your intellectual mind. But on the other hand, if you look beneath the surface of the water, we also have a hidden or a covert emotional curriculum. And this is the one that focuses on how much you feel, how well you are in control, and that you actually positively direct yourself. How self-aware you are. So this is what we call the capacity of your experiential self, right? Your emotional self. And obviously we need both to be successful, but how often does the EQ, right? The emotional quotient, the emotional intelligence go ignored? So I want you to look at the cartoon on the right, and it's a mom getting a report card, reading the report card of her son, right? And so the son says, "I'm disappointed too." It skims right over all the important stuff like psychological development, morality, relationship skills, emotional and personal growth. So mom's looking at this report card and she sees, for example, that her son got an F in spelling. That's a measure of whether or not he can spell this or that word right. You can take any word, the word receive, right? So did he spell it right or wrong? If he spelled it right, he got an A. If he spelled it wrong, he got an F, okay? So mom's disappointed, but the kid's saying, I'm disappointed too, because that is not the only measure of intelligence. So for example, what if all the kids cheated in class and they all got A's, but he got an F on the cognitive ability, but he didn't cheat, which is a morality skill, right? Or what if the night before his brother had revealed to him that he was being bullied in school, and instead of studying for the test, he actually emotionally comforted his brother and came up with some strategies to deal with bullies the next day. So that's not measuring that kind of a skill, which is also a type of intelligence. So speaking of this EI curriculum, researchers have been studying it for a long time. And in the early 1900s, there was a psychologist from Harvard who was named Dr. Daniel Goldman. And his research was based on earlier research by Dr. Michel and so forth. But what he did was some interesting research on emotional intelligence. And what he did is he watched 4-year-olds interacting with, of all things, a marshmallow. And so what he did in this experiment was that he invited children one at a time into this blank, plain room, and he offered those kids a marshmallow, right there, right then. But he told them if they waited 5-10 minutes, whatever, while he went to kind of run an errand or do something, if they didn't eat the marshmallow when he got back, he would give them 2 marshmallows when he returned. So first of all, we got to talk about kids and marshmallows. Obviously, most kids love marshmallows unless maybe they're allergic to them or something. But if a marshmallow doesn't work for you, imagine some other yummy, sugary treat like a chocolate bar or something. And what they did is they looked at the results of the kids years later, at the moment and then years later. So let's talk about in the moment. So in the moment, some of the children actually, grabbed for that treat the minute the researcher was out the door. Others of those kids lasted a few minutes, but then they gave in. And of course, others didn't take the marshmallow, but instead they, found some kind of a distraction, whether that was covering their eyes or putting their heads down or singing or playing a game or falling asleep. So the researcher did follow through. When he returns, he would give the kids that waited 2 marshmallows. So before we actually go over what ultimately happened with these students years later, I want you to think about yourself in that time period and what you would have done. I want you to transport yourself, back to 4 years old and kind of say out loud what you think you would have done. Okay, so let's look at the results years later. So they looked at these same children in high school and then in college and on in their lives and so forth. And what they found is the 4-year-olds that had that fortitude to hold out for the second marshmallow tended to grow up to be better adjusted, more popular, adventurous, more confident, and more dependable as teenagers. But the ones who gave in to the temptation early on were more likely, you can see it there on the screen, were more likely to grow up to be easily frustrated, stubborn, they buckled under stress, and they tend to shy away from challenges and not take any kind of risks. So when you look at this from a bigger perspective, what are the real results of this study? It means that the ability to delay gratification, to delay that instant gratification, that you need something and you need it right now, is actually a master skill. And it's even greater than a master skill. It's a type of intelligence. And it reveals kind of the triumph of the reasoning brain, the cognitive brain, over our impulsive emotional brain, or at least the ability of the 2 brains to work together in unison, the wise brain to actually be in its functioning state.